welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview show as we look ahead to this week's trip to Queen's Park Rangers. There are two sides who've enjoyed contrasting fortunes so far this season. Thankfully for us, we're on the better end of that. So we've roped in the always excellent Clive from LoftForWords, who was voted by many as the best opposition guest that we've had on What the Falk by a number of people when I asked the other week. How are you doing, mate? You all right?
Is that true? That's very kind. Thank you to people that did that. It's very nice of them.
I think it's because you criticise Michael Beale. It helps. You're good with words when it comes to Michael Beale.
Yeah, not my favourite.
Snap. There's tons to get through, but look, we'll start from the top. You're second bottom at the minute, I think, as people know, but you're heading to the weekend on a morale-boosting draw, really. You did us a bit of a favour, got a 0-0 draw at Burnley. How was the performance?
Yeah, I mean, better from us, certainly defensively. Steve Cook had a really good game. Jake Clark-Salter, really good game. It's our first clean sheet of the season, which has obviously been a long time in coming, and is a shame for the goalkeeper because I think he's been basically the best of the summer intake. So I'm pleased for them, and it was good to see us put a bit of a rearguard action up. But you are only playing Scott Parker FC. Burnley are not Vincent Kompany's Burnley. Lots and lots of backwards and sidewards, intensely boring attempt to get promoted out of this league with a £50 million squad by winning every game 1-0. So, the lack of, ambition or ability to go forward against that and actually trouble their goalkeeper and maybe score a goal of our own was a shame. Unfortunately, the centre forward is probably the worst of the summer intake, which I'm sure we'll get into at the moment. So, yeah, look, it was a good point. We didn't expect anything from the game. So, yeah, reasonably happy, I guess.
I think we've all been in those sort of ruts where you're getting beaten, a draw from the outside looking in might be like, oh, it's a draw. They haven't won in X, Y, and Z games. But you've now drew 2 games in a row, I think, and you've lost 4 consecutively. Is the light at the end of the tunnel?
So I've been trying to sort of stay positive with it all because I do really like the manager. And I think, the profile of the signings that we made over the summer, if you bring like 10 analytics boys in from all over Europe, just weird far-flung corners of Europe as well. If you look at the sort of clubs we were signing these players from, then it was always going to take a long time to work, if indeed it does work. And there's no guarantee that it will. So it was always going to take time. And then you put on top of that, we've had Jake Clark-Salter, Jack Colback and Ilias Chair injured all at the same time. So Ilias Chair's your best player, Jack Colback's your best shithouse midfielder, and Jake Clark-Salter's your best defender and only left-sided defender. So that's like your 3 championship experienced players right down the spine of the team are missing just at the point that you're trying to bed in, like I say, these 10 kids from all over Europe, really, all of them apart from the goalkeeper under 25. So, timing is not ideal. And I guess by that logic, those players come back, the new guys settle in, will pick up eventually. I guess the problem is in the meantime, we're picking up other injuries now. So we're losing players faster than we're getting them back. And obviously confidence is draining out of the team. So rather than getting up to speed, it's actually going the other way because they just can't put a result on the board. So look, I've tried to remain positive and I'm still trying to remain positive. But it's going to be tough. Yeah. So I keep telling myself it'll be fine, but it's a bit like Homer's airborne pig at the minute. It's like it's just a bit slimy. It's still good. It's still good. Just a bit dirty. It's still good. It's still good. Just a bit airborne. It's still good. It's still good. At what point do you have to just say, we're in the shit again"?
I wanted to take you back to like the chat we had last season because I remember I think we played each other in March. I tried to forget about it because it was probably the worst game of football I've ever watched in my life, to be completely honest.
It wasn't great.
It was in the midst of that just absolute crap end to the season that we had. You were really grinding out results, and I don't even know if you came from 0-0 draw. I just think both sides were crap, and we drew 0-0. It was kind of that sort of game. But before the game itself, we spoke, and I said, "Look, you've been up against it for what feels like a couple of years, and this new manager's came in, and it looks like you might just survive it, but it's still, it was really tight last year." And you said, "Look, I feel like." Because of like financial issues at the time, you said, I felt like if we survive, that'll be really important, because what could then happen is we could then be a little bit better, not win the league, but like we don't have to be like held back by financial restraints because of X, Y, and Z, which you explained on the show at the time. And we could maybe begin to look to go further up the table, maybe even, I don't know, 17th, 15th, something like that. But 12 games in, one win, you're struggling as much as ever, really. Why, you touched on a little bit there, but why has the start of the season been as tough as it has, and why has it not took off as maybe
It's
as a whole?
yeah, it's really dispiriting. I mean, short answer is maybe I just talk a lot of crap. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but it did feel like, we'd come through obviously 2 or 3 years of footballing sort of purgatory, because the money we spent trying to get promoted under Warburton had put us behind the 8 ball and everything I said last year. So I just thought, with this manager, who I still really like, if we could have just survived last year, then we'll kick on to mid-table, the glory heights of sort of 10th, 11th, 12th, which I think last year was Bristol City, Preston and Cardiff. So, we're not talking anything cataclysmic here. Like, so if you just sort of do as well as Preston did last year, you'll be held up as some sort of miracle worker. But yeah, it hasn't gone well so far. It still could. I mean, there were a couple of home games in that run, Plymouth, Hull, that we battered, really played really well and came up against weirdly good goalkeeping displays. We had 10 shots on target against Plymouth, who played for an hour with 10 men, and their goalkeeper just saved them all. Like, 10 shots on target is usually a win. So, it would only have needed a couple of things to go different. We'd be in mid-table. It only needs a couple of wins at this stage, and we will be back in mid-table. So it can still turn out fine. And I keep telling myself this. I guess the problem so far comes back to the recruitment. As I said, we did have some more money to spend. We did have some more headroom to spend money this summer, and we've done that. But like I say, they've done it, the strikers come from Lugano in the Swiss league. We've got a winger from Brest in the French league. We've got a Japanese guy on loan from Lommel in the Belgian league. We've signed a Danish midfielder from the Belgian league, and not big teams in those leagues either. So it's all been done on analytics. We basically handed the keys of the club over to a 27-year-old guy. It's just, you can't take your eyes off QPR for a minute. They're like a child. Like, as soon as they've gone quiet, you're like, oh my God, what's he doing? What are they up to? It basically, like, at the start of last season, there's this company called Retexo, who, as far as we can tell, is basically sort of a recruitment consultancy for off-field football roles, performance directors, sports science, that sort of thing. They come in, audit your club and tell you what you're doing wrong. We've all dealt I'm sure in our day jobs and our businesses with these sort of consultancies and these sorts of people. After 6 months of this audit and consultancy, the result was that they've decided to take the director of football role that used to be Les Ferdinand and take the chief exec role that used to be Lee Hughes, who, whatever you thought of him, was very experienced. He'd been chief exec at Leicester, Southampton, Fulham, Burnley, all over the place, really. And then amalgamate those two roles and give it one big football-focused chief executive role to the 27-year-old recruitment consultant who was doing the audit. I'll do an audit on your club for 6 months, and the result of that is you should give me the job. So we've now got this guy, Christian Nori, who's basically running the whole club, from top to bottom, overseeing recruitment, on-field, off-field. And it's almost his first proper job out of school, really. He set up this consultancy and said, I'm a consultant. Now he's got this job that he's never done before. And he really is writing the theme tune and singing the theme tune. It's all him. And they've used the data and analytics and the recruitment over the summer, but everyone's got data and analytics now. We know all about Brighton and Brentford and their proprietary models and whatever, but everyone uses data and analytics. I'm sort of wondering what makes our data and analytics better than anybody else's. And if you look at the signings they made so far, perhaps it's not better than anybody else's. So look, like I say, it was always going to take time for these guys to settle, and maybe they'll settle and we'll be fine. But, there are big alarm bells ringing that QPR have basically turn the keys to the club over to this kid, and it's like I say, QPR do strange things, and this might be one of the strangest.
Sounds like, I don't know if you're familiar with the film, but Tommy Wiseau, like he directs the room, he produces the room, he also acts in the room, he wrote everything about the room, and it turned out to be the worst movie ever, but it might actually be quite entertaining to watch. Um, if you want to progress in any way, shape, size, and form in the championship or any league, really, you need to win your home games. You're one of only two teams that haven't. 6 games, no home wins. What's happening there?
Bit unlucky, like I said, in the Hull and the Plymouth games, but this has been a problem for years. I think we've won 13 of our last 50 home games. Yeah, start of last season, we didn't win any of the first 9. I think we're on 7 now without a win, and we've got you and Borough next week, which doesn't immediately scream, wins and points, but we'll see. I don't know what the answer is really. I mean, the one thing that I will say is that whenever you talk to the players at QPR and whatever, everyone talks about Loftus Road being, tight, fans are right on you. The atmosphere is great when it's rocking. When it's going well, there's no better place to play, because the fans are quite intimidating for the visiting team, but it works both ways, right? And when things aren't going well, there's obviously mumbling and grumbling and the atmosphere isn't terrific and whatever. And every player that I've spoken to at QPR over the years has said sort of the same thing, which is we can hear what you're saying, and they can literally hear what you're what you're saying at Loftus Road, and that can be quite tough when you've got a youngish team, European signings, not playing well. It's they're trying to adapt to the Championship, and they can hear what you're saying. It can be intimidating for the home players as well as the away ones, I think. That's the only sort of logical explanation I can come up with. But like I say, we've been losing at home under 4 or 5 different managers, 13 wins out of 50 games or something like that. So, yeah, it is. I'm sick of turning up to Loftus Road and watching the away fans have a lovely time. It's doing my head in just every week. You look at the school end, it looks fucking great down there. Everyone's jumping about and having a great day. Big day out in London with all the pubs, and you win and you go home. I am getting sick of it. Absolutely.
You talk about the manager before. You said, you're still behind him. I think from a Sunderland perspective, I think he was linked to the job. And whilst no one was like, oh, we have to get Cifuentes, it wasn't a name we turned our nose up at. It wasn't a name that seemed like a bad decision if we went for that. As it was, we went for Regis Le Bris, which has worked out very, very well. But Cifuentes hasn't started the season that well. And a bit like maybe a few weeks ago with Danny Rowe, things can change drastically if you don't win games on a weekend and you don't win the next week and the week after that. That really good manager that you've got a lot of confidence in, suddenly you're like, he's crap, he's rubbish, get him out, change him. Has the confidence changed with him, or does people think that the issues are like outside of what he can do and what he can manage?
There's been absolutely no dissent or words of grumbling or moaning or whatever about Cifuentes from the fans at all, zero. And the 700 or so that went to Burnley on Saturday were clearly right behind him. The focus has been more on what's happening above him. How have we recruited these players? How have we identified these players? Because the general consensus is, and look, the club's communication strategy now is under Christian Noriad, we're going to tell you as little as possible, and we're going to as late as we possibly can. They're very, very guarded with all communications at the moment, and they've withdrawn Cifuentes from sort of all public appearances, other than obviously the press conferences and the ones that he has to do, and obviously the soft soapy club interviews before and after the match. We usually get an interview with the manager in the summer. That was pulled. First time ever the manager didn't appear at the fans forum recently. They've just pulled him completely out of view and won't let him speak almost. So, I mean, that to me, being a sort of cynical old hack, I guess, but that to me says immediately, well, what are you afraid he's going to say? And the mood, I think, among the supporters, and I would never claim to speak for all QPR supporters, but the mood seems to be that we've got a good manager. He showed last season what a good manager he is, and problem solving, and we've got faith in him that he will be able to turn this around and find ways to work. But he's been presented with these 10 signings over the summer. We're not convinced that he had very much to do with all of them. Nori says it's a collaborative effort, etc., but also says that our head of recruitment has probably got more power than any other head of recruitment in the league. So it feels very much like Cifuentes has been presented with these players, and it's like, well, you get a tune out of them. There's also this weird thing they keep talking about. Nori likes to talk a lot about the game model, which basically is, set from his level, the exec level. We're going to play this formation, this style of football that aims to develop players to sell, and we're going to play that at first team level, development squad level, under 18s, right the way through. Everybody has to play in the same system, the same way, the game model. There's sort of, so is Cifuentes even in charge of like how we're playing? So yeah, zero criticism going towards him. All the focus at the moment is on what's happening above him and how we've ended up sort of with these signings and what's going on there. Whether that'll sustain, because Cifuentes has done some odd things. There's been some odd substitutions and weird team selections and stuff like that. He's definitely got some stuff wrong this season. So whether, like you say, fans will turn eventually, but I think it's more likely that they'll turn probably on the head of recruitment. He's probably the next sacrificial lamb at QPR. And then, Nori, I think, will come under more and more scrutiny the longer this goes on, more than the manager, who remains at the moment sort of very, very popular.
You can always tell when there's crap going on above, I think. It's probably, if like you said, what Cifuentes did last year, I think he turned around a really poor QPR team, with all due respect, to like being relatively comfortably safe towards the end. And if he's been dumped with 10 players that he hasn't had a great deal of say in, or collaborative effort towards signing, I suppose that makes a lot of sense. I was kind of curious. It doesn't really add to the game on Saturday, I suppose, but I work up in Scotland. Hearts just sacked their manager. And they've appointed Neil Critchley, but also Gareth Ainsworth was a favourite for a while. What did you make of like former QPR managers that failed dramatically whilst in charge of QPR, kind of being linked to jobs that were relatively decent ones to get hold of?
Well, I felt sorry for Neil Critchley at QPR. I think if he'd been appointed in the summer when we appointed Mick Beale, it might have been very different for him, because he came across as a decent guy, and he'd done well at Blackpool previously. I quite liked him and just felt that he walked into a terrible situation here. Beale had walked out. Half of the Beale signings had down tools. The rest of the players were demoralised. He had 13 games over Christmas. Again, some weird sliding doors moments in that when, we conceded a 96-minute equaliser to Sheffield United and stuff like that. Yeah, I felt a bit sorry for him, really. So I know the Blackpool fans are a bit sort of nonplussed by him second time around. I hope he does well. I quite like him. Ainsworth, look, absolutely love him as a player. Obviously had a good thing going at Wycombe. Bit out of his depth at championship level for me. Just found out, that sort of, I don't know, old crazy gang style, the world's against us, lump it long, shithouse, bully referees, Akinfenwa up front and whatever. It suits a certain kind of club and a certain level of football, but I don't think you can do that in the Championship now. Whether you would be able to do it in Scotland, he's obviously tried to find out. I did read the Daily Record piece linking Ainsworth to that job, and if ever a piece had come from a guy's agent, it was that, quotes like, a short period at QPR, but there was too much going on behind the scenes to change things. Like, oh yeah, a source close to Gareth said. So yeah, a little. But again, I loved him as a player, and he's a good bloke. He was good with me while he was at the club and whatever. So I'd like him to get another job and do well. But football wise, certainly out of his depth at Championship level.
Do you think you'd ever get the guy in to do the hacker thing that he did QPR, which still lives in my mind rent free, really? I felt like it was going to go wrong from that moment forward, but it felt also so right from Ainsworth at the same time.
I mean, it's so right for QPR as well. We are a mad club. It's like, we just, there's always something like that going on. We're always up to something. Yeah, I think we lost 6-1 at Blackpool after. I mean, the stupid thing is, we actually beat Watford 1-0 in the week that they did the hacker, and like nobody really noticed. But then the week after, we lost 6-1 to Blackpool, and everyone noticed there was this hacker video on our YouTube channels. It's like, oh, why QPR? Just like I say, you can't leave them alone. As soon as they leave them alone, they do something stupid. It's like, we're going to do a hacker and put it on the YouTube channel and lose 6-1 to Blackpool. Are you? Okay. Good luck with that, lads.
It's still a look on the players' faces, just brilliant. The look of I think it's Jay Clark-Salter, who I'd completely forgot existed for a long, long time, to be honest. His face was kind of like, why is that guy naked and wearing some sort of like ceremonial dress? It hasn't all been negative for QPR. You know, there is one positive that I've noticed from the outside looking in, and it's staying on the Scotland theme. Karamoka Dembele was one of like the highest rated young academy products when he was like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 at Celtic. And he never really did anything. He always looked far too young, to be honest. He looked like a 12-year-old whenever he played, even when he was 16, 17. And he sort of frittered out and went nowhere. He went away to a couple of loan deals. Went to Blackpool last year and was excellent. Brought in by QPR. And I thought, see how he does at championship level. And despite the fact you haven't played all that well and you haven't been picking up results, he's been doing a good job. He's been playing well. I noticed he didn't play on Saturday, but how impressive has he been, and how much have you relied on him for the creative spot?
Yeah, he should. I think he should play this weekend. I think it was only a knock that kept him out of Burnley. Although again, strategy, we're not allowed to know. Idiot scum like us, not allowed to know things like that. So I hope he does play this weekend. Yeah, he started unbelievably in his first 2 or 3 games. We're like, what have we got ourselves here? Just, flicks and tricks. Sheffield United away, he was brilliant. And then he's had the QPR putting him a little bit, confidence has gone and, not been as effective. Scored a really nice goal against Portsmouth to put us 1-0 up in our home game against what I think is probably going to end up being the worst team in the league. And, we blew that and lost 2-1, Portsmouth's only win. Fits and start. Apart from the first 3 games when he was brilliant, he's sort of done it in fits and starts. He still looks like an 11-year-old. Like, he's tiny, and Koki Saito, the Japanese lad that we've signed, has also looked very good, but he's also tiny. Paul Smith, who was here anyway, is 5'3" or 4, and obviously Ilias Chair is 4'0". I'm not sure whether it occurred to the, playing. It's like watching the Munchkins from the Wizard of Oz run around. It's like, these 4 midget gems, but, the Championship's a physical league. And no surprise, we've started conceding goals off set pieces again. Because, if you put Saito and Dembele on each other's shoulders, I'm not sure they'd make much difference at a defensive corner. So that is proving to be a problem. And again, that comes back to the recruitment. Did you think it was a good idea when you've already got 2 5'3" players to add 2 more 5'3" players to that and just go out in the Championship and think that would be fine and no one would sort of pile in over the top of you? But he's exciting, and fingers crossed. I'm hoping that goal against Portsmouth, just puts a bit of confidence back in, because you can just see it draining away. QPR is a tough club to play for.
It's interesting you mentioned about Paul Smith. The one thing I remember about Paul Smith is he scored against us for Accrington Stanley, and it was a header. And I remember being like, how's he scored a header from there? Like, I can't quite remember the goal. I just remember looking at him going, he looks like half the size of Kevin Phillips. What's he doing scoring headers? You touched on the goalkeeper before, who's maybe been one of the most impressive. I know the recruitment hasn't been the best, but who are the players that, if you are to kind of, because it does feel very much sometimes like Sunderland are flying, QPR are not flying. Oh no, we're going to get beat 1-0. That kind of game. It feels a bit like Plymouth earlier in the season a bit. Who are the players that are going to turn us over if you do, or could?
I hope so. That'd be nice.
Not for
so Nardi's been really good, the goalkeeper. And look, the club would tell you that he was the first one that signed. He was like way early in the summer. So he's had a full pre-season, whereas a lot of the other ones haven't. So he's done the most training with the team, the most training with the manager. Lo and behold, he's the most up to speed. He's also the most experienced one they've signed. I think he's 29, 30. All the others are under 25. So, I'm clinging to these things that it'll get better because, you've got young players from all over Europe and they'll settle in, as I keep saying. So, I'm clinging to that. And it's no surprise probably that the one that's nearly 30 and has been here the longest looks the best of them. Who's going to turn you over? I mean, the problem on Saturdays was we've got nothing up front. Mishy Frey is our first choice striker, and he's an interesting watch. It looks like a dad in a dads and lads match. It's like one of the lads didn't turn up and the dad's filling in. He runs like someone whose upper half of his body is having an argument with the lower half of his body. He's a strange watch, but he's managed to score 4 times, which I think is a surprise to him. But he's injured now. So we're having to pick Zan Seller up front, who was like the big summer acquisition up front, Slovenian international who did go to the Euros and made a couple of sub appearances. But we got him from the Swiss League, and the sort of YouTube goals compilation looked very, the goalkeeping's not up to much in the Swiss League. And he, so far, sadly, and again, on a human level, tough to see a guy coming into a new country, new city, new league and struggling as much as he is. But he does not look up to championship standard at the minute. I think, was it Coventry on Tuesday night? He played up front full game and touched the ball 12 times. So there's genuine concern about him, and while he's struggling, we're just posing no goal threat. I think we've scored 2 in a game twice, and that was much earlier, sort of August time at Sheffield United and Luton. We scored 1 goal or fewer in every game since then, and we're posing less and less threat as the games go along rather than more. Never looked like we were going to score on Saturday, and the equaliser against Coventry, the goalkeeping was strange. So. Yeah, who's going to turn you over? Hopefully, Chair's getting back up to speed after a long injury. Dembele come back in the team. Saito's playing quite well. Those sort of 3, like the midget gems, I keep calling them, behind the main striker. That's where the main threat, if you can call it a threat, comes from.
Interesting you touched on the strikers not being up to much. I know Lyndon Dykes is not a lethal goal scorer in any way, shape, size, or form. There's a reason he dropped further down, and there's a reason he hasn't scored for Birmingham yet. But I suppose he offers you an experienced option, a bit of a battering ram. He does a job for Scotland quite often. But you also sold Sinclair Armstrong for 2.5, another player who we were really loosely linked with for some bizarre reason. How bad of a decision is that looking, getting rid of first and foremost Sinclair Armstrong, and then also Dykes is a second experienced option?
I think leaving yourself just with Frey and Seller as your main strikers for the first half of the season was a huge risk, and a pretty obviously a huge risk. We've got a young striker who you may have seen called Ryan Colley, the guy with the sideshow bob hair. He played most of the pre-season and started the first game against West Brom and has now disappeared entirely, not on the bench, wasn't in the squad photo. And there's all sorts of rumours and counter-rumours about why that is, dispute over a contract. Cifuentes has been told he can't pick him and all of this stuff. So we're down to 2 strikers, one of whom's now injured and the other one's not very good. Dykes, he'd been here a long time and just wasn't doing it, and in many ways was getting worse. I'm not going to cry too much about them letting Lyndon Dykes go. He was probably one of our top earners. Look at the comments from the Birmingham fans after their draw at Mansfield at the weekend. He's missed another sitter in there. They're all saying, QPR have had our pants down for him. So I'm not too sorry to see Lyndon leave. Sinclair, I would like to have stayed. Raw, very exciting. I really liked Sinclair. But it's a contract situation. He had 1 year left. It was pretty clear that the agent and the club were miles apart on what they think he's worth. And we had a couple of clubs interested in it. We were able to play off to the extent that we got £2.5 million, which is probably a good deal. He's gone to Bristol City and done exactly what he did for us. Misses chances, raw as hell, not a brain in his head, but quick and exciting. Looks at times like he ended up in the wrong sport, but quite fun. And certainly, when you look at the way Seller played against Burnley at the weekend versus how Armstrong played when we won at Burnley the previous visit, is sort of chalk and cheese and night and day. So yeah, it's a shame. Going into the season with just Frey and Seller as your strikers was a bold move. Let's put it that way.
Looking at Sunderland, which is my favourite part of the show at the minute. Really enjoying it. I loathe to say this because it's like famous last words, but we had to QPR top the league by 5 points. Best home record and best away record in the division, apparently, if Google tells me correct. We have started the championship season better than almost, I think there's only 6 teams in the history of the championship that have had a better start of the season than us. But for some reason, I keep seeing people telling us we're not that good. We've just been a bit lucky. What have you made of Sunderland start the season for what you've seen?
Which game of yours did I see near the start of the season? I thought, my God, these guys look incredible. I'll do a sort of Joe Rogan podcast and look it up while I'm talking.
Chef Wales?
Yes, Sheffield Wednesday. Watched that game and was just like, oh my God, this looked really good. Watched you against Leeds more recently, and just golden comedy at the end there. Who says Sky don't invest in original comedy? I enjoyed that so much. I don't, it's only the Championship, isn't it? It's not the colossally difficult, challenging league that everyone makes it out to be. So there's no reason that Sunderland can't carry on. My suspicion is that you'll end up in the playoffs, and Leeds and Burnley will be top two, but I hope not, because I hate Leeds. I would refer you back to what I said on this last year, like when Sunderland were terrible on this huge, great long run of results and everyone was losing their minds. It's like, it is quite sort of febrile and, Goldfish Bowl and intense up in Sunderland. It's always either feast or famine, right? And at the last time we spoke, it was famine. And I think I said not to sort of Gab Sutton levels of optimism for Sunderland, but I did say, look, you've had a lot of injuries. You've got a couple of managerial appointments wrong. This season's obviously gone. Lots of young players in the team who'll be better for the experience. I would sort of calm down and better things will come for you guys next season. So like I say, not Gab Sutton levels of Sunderland are going to win everything, but I'm not overly surprised that Sunderland are doing a lot better. And it wouldn't surprise me if you didn't stick around the top. Good. There was a base of young players anyway, and I thought the departure from the previous policy, just that Alan Brown signing, I thought was really shrewd and really good. And we probably should have made a signing like that ourselves this summer, just as a little nod to, what you need in a logistically, tough league to play in a physical league. We had Isaac Hayden on loan last year, who I know Newcastle player you guys aren't going to like, but he was really important in our survival. And apparently according to him, he went on one of our YouTube channels recently and was like, he was 99% certain to come back in this summer. And at the last minute, QPR changed their minds and did another signing instead. He could have been our sort of like Alan Brown signing, if you like. And I think we're going to regret not doing that, I think. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Sunderland hang around sort of top six. No reason why not.
God, I hope so. At least until we get the Premier League, because I'm not really missing the Premier League, but the destination to get there is quite nice sometimes, isn't it? I've changed.
It's all about the journey, right?
All about the journey. It's all about the journey, not the destination. I've changed the question a little bit this year, as people will know now, because I felt like I was asking this question: who's Sunderland's best player? And everyone went Jack Clarke. So I changed the question at the start of the season, and then Jack Clarke left. If you could take any player from Sunderland's team, not necessarily our best player, just a player you could take from Sunderland and plunk them into QPR's team where you're maybe weak or a position needs strengthening, who would it be and why would you choose him?
Well, at the moment, given how poor we are up front, it's basically whatever striker you've got. So it's like Aaron Connolly or whoever. And like I say, we needed, I think, in hindsight, to make a sort of Alan Brownie signing. But my answer with Sunderland is always the angelic shithouse Luke O'Nien. It annoys me that he played for bloody Wealdstone and Wickham right on our patch, and we ignored him. And I just think every team needs, every squad, every club needs a character like that. Every team needs a player like that. He's horrible. I detest watching. I know he's going to wind me up on Saturday. I know he's going to be in the referee's ear. I know he's going to be feigning injuries to get the play stopped. I know he's going to time waste if Sunderland go up. He's going to drive me insane. And I so wish he was doing it in QPR colours. It breaks my heart, honestly. Every club and every team needs a player like that. And we just don't have it. we're too nice. And yeah, I think you make a big difference. But like I say, probably a striker over his house at the moment. But yeah, I love Luke O'Nien when he's not playing against us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I could wax lyrical about Luke all day. Before I ask for your prediction, he wasn't really with us very much, but he seems to have developed into it. And you touched on it earlier. Callback's turned himself into like your shithouse. Is he likely to play on Saturday? I mean, we'd like him to.
No, he's out for weeks.
That's a shame.
Do you know what? He got sent off at Sheffield United in our first away game for he abused the referee over a free kick that was a free kick and got yellow carded. It wasn't even him that gave away the free kick. And then the ball went down the field and I watched him do it. I was like, someone needs to get hold of him here, because he ran 40 yards across the pitch to scream at the fourth official about the same incident. So he got booked for dissent twice in 2 minutes over the same incident. And it was a free kick. And I think at that point, everyone was like, I am so sick of this guy. He's an absolute liability with referees. He's meant to be your experienced player and he can't shut up. And I think at that point, everyone was basically done with him, and he's been suspended and then injured ever since. And there's this syndrome at QPR where you become a better player for QPR the longer you don't play for QPR. Ryan Manning was the absolute king of this. If Ryan Manning kept getting loaned out, and in the pro 3 months later, he became our best player. So there is, looking at our midfield, which is just powder puff, doesn't put tackles in, doesn't score goals, doesn't win headers, too nice. Teams are just walking through us. Everyone's like, oh, we do miss Jack Colback. And look, we do. And people like me are clinging to this idea that, Colback will come back and Clark Salter will get fit and Chair will be fit and it'll all be fine. But yeah, it does look like we're missing Jack Colback. But that says something about our start to the season, because he's 34, 35 now. And most fans prior to his injury were like, oh, take him or leave him. But now everyone's like, oh God, we really miss Colback. We really miss Colback.
He always puts in an absolute stinker against us. He's always absolutely shite. So it's a bit of a shame.
He sent off, didn't he, last year? Yeah.
Just for being a dick.
Well, he is, isn't he? I mean, he's out, like I say, with the Luke O'Nien thing, he's our dick, and you do need, somebody like that. And we are lacking that at the minute, sadly.
Everyone needs a knob, which is a thing I didn't think I'd say, but here we are. Predictions, I'm kind of loath to go for a win just because, look, we should. But form doesn't always collate to stuff. We've had really good form at Loftus Road. I think we've won the last 100 games at Loftus Road from my memory. So it just feels a bit like this might be a draw, and I don't really want to say that, but I'm going to go annoyingly 1-1.
I wouldn't. I'd be a brave person to back QPR to win at the moment with our strikers, whatever. But we've got to beat someone eventually, haven't we? Even if it's by accident. Or maybe we don't, but, we will beat someone eventually.
And Sunderland can sometimes Sunderland. So I think we'll shake on 1-1. Just agree to disagree.
I'll take anything I can get at the minute.
Spot on. Thanks, mate.
No worries. See you soon. Good luck.